You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we're joined by Joseph Bavaro, senior partner at Salenger, Kimmel, and Bavaro, and one of New York's most respected trial attorneys in medical malpractice and catastrophic personal injury litigation. With more than 25 years of experience, Joe has built a reputation as a fierce courtroom advocate with an unwavering commitment to representing individuals and families who have been seriously harmed by negligence. Joe began his legal career in the district attorney's office, where public service was deeply rewarding, but he soon realized his true calling was civil litigation, particularly medical malpractice, where he could fight for the little guy against powerful institutions. Introduced early in his career to the firm's founder, Marvin Salenger, Joe went on to become a cornerstone of SSKB's trial practice, known for his aggressive courtroom presence, meticulous preparation, and dedication to giving his clients a voice. Welcome, Joe.
What an intro. Thank you so much for having me.
That's a lot. There's a lot to break down there if we went piece by piece. A lot of it interesting, too, that I'd love to hear.
It sounds like it was written by my mom.
By your mom? Well, wouldn't that be nice? Maybe it was. She actually sent it to me earlier this afternoon.
No. Yeah, wow. Yeah, it's a lot to break down. I'm pretty proud hearing that. I'm pretty proud of this guy Joe Bavaro and what he's done.
Yeah.
I mean, you guy from Staten Island, not so bad.
Hey, look, I want to shout out Jeff Kimmel, episode 240. Great guy. We really had a good conversation. I really do hope I meet you guys in person, because even speaking beforehand, this is a law firm that I could really see cares about the clients, and you're fighting meticulously. You all kind of know your roles, and the convo with Jeff was great. So thanks for coming on.
I'm blessed to call him my partner, and thank you for having me. You really become a product of who you're with, know, in this life, and
sure.
And I've been blessed to have a lot of good people around me in my career,
Sure.
He's definitely up there with the people who have supported me and helped me be the best version of Joe Bavaro.
And I don't think this was in there, Joe, but you guys are in Long Island. Like, it wasn't in my intro, but Long Island. The firm's based out of Long Island, correct? And you're helping clients all over New York?
Well, all over New York. We actually go out of state too, on the right case. But we originally started out of Manhattan. We were a firm started by Bob Sack and Marvin Salenger. Bob was out of the Bronx. Marvin was out of Brooklyn. And we were out of the Woolworth building in downtown Manhattan from its beginning until about 2017, just before COVID. We started to transition away. We did a lot of work for a firm that did workers' compensation for the Nassau County Police Department. And then we started doing a lot of their work. And it was we've moved away from Manhattan because of I live in Long Island, and Jeff lives in Long Island, and business was taking us out here, and fighting that traffic didn't have to happen every day.
Yeah, why not? And you said the Woolworth building. Oh, that's an old school store.
Oh, what a beautiful old school store. And it was at one point the tallest building in the world, I think. Really? The story was. It was quite something. And we were right in the shadow of the World Trade Center. Okay. So it was a beautiful place to be.
Wow.
Beautiful building. And it was the early 2000s was a different place.
Right. Totally. Yeah. So also shout out to Rachel from your team. She does a great job organizing everything. I just wanted to say thanks to her.
Great.
So Joe, let's start from the beginning. Like, where did your interest in the law come from? Like, first, where are you from? And like, when did you start to get interested in the law?
It's a very, you talk about, I said earlier, you're a product of the people you have around you. My mom, when I was a kid, my mom was a clerk in the courthouse.
Okay.
So she worked for attorneys. Then she passed a couple exams, became a clerk.
Wow.
And I would see her with judges, and I'd see her with attorneys, and I maybe that was that little festering of that, but
Right.
more than that, more than just the title of lawyer. My dad, who I later found out didn't even have a high school education. My dad came from Italy, came to the United States when he was a teenager.
Wow.
Didn't finish school. He was working in the family business, which was a deli. Um, he was the oldest male in his generation of immigrants and family, and there was on my mom's side, my father's side, they would turn to my dad for advice. And I
Okay.
would always see my father just listening, and trying to help. And I think maybe that's where that all started.
It's interesting.
He was always gratified. He wasn't quick to offer opinion, but he was quick to listen. And maybe I should listen to that a little bit more in my career, in my life as a parent, as a person. He was quick to listen, not quick to talk.
So that,
And
yeah, it's interesting.
everything was a measured opinion because he felt if someone's coming to me and putting their problem on my lap, I should have, I'm reading into it, but I should have the grace to listen.
Yeah.
And I guess that's where maybe that's all where that all started.
Well, it's sort of like the perfect storm of things. I mean, your mom being a clerk, working up to a clerk in the court, and then, your dad listening. And you said he was born in Italy. Like, when did he come over and that sort of thing?
It's an interesting story. My father, if he was alive today, would be 91 years old. He
Hmm.
passed away just before 9/11 in 2000.
Okay.
So he's been gone too long.
Hmm.
But he came here right after World War II, and he was raised by his grandfather because my father's father came to the United States to work in Detroit for Ford
Hmm.
and
Okay.
saved money and brought the family over. Um, so my father was raised by his grandfather, which is really a very interesting. A psychologist would have a field day with dissecting that. My father was treated very well by his grandfather. He knew
Okay.
his worth. My father knew his worth because he was valued by an older gentleman who he was the only male boy in
Wow.
the family, only
Okay.
boy, and he was treated very, very well. And my dad knew his worth. And my dad, again, you would never know that my dad didn't have an education. He valued education. I have a brother who's an orthopedic surgeon. I have a sister with two master's degree who's in education,
Wow.
and I was required to go to law school. That I was required to go to college, and he pushed me to be a lawyer because education was the path to the American dream.
Really? So
Um,
so slow down. So he said go to law school. He was like, you
yeah,
gotta go to law school. Why do you think that was?
well, because my dad worked every day of his life until he
Hmm.
passed. My dad worked. When he got married to my mom did not want to be tied to the family business of a deli and
Right.
all of what that meant. He wanted, you don't have health insurance, all those things that you need to exist. My mother wanted. She wanted the American dream herself. She's also a product of immigrants, of Italian immigrants.
Hmm.
So my father left the deli business and worked in sales for, this is going to sound like a cliche,
Hmm.
the Ronzoni Macaroni Company.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So my father worked his way up through Ronzoni in sales. You would never know my dad was an immigrant from his accent,
Okay.
except for one time when he was talking to me and my brother and we were misbehaving. He would call us assholes. So aside, excuse the French. So aside from that, you would never know that he was from Italy, who were born in Italy, came to the United States when he was in his teens. So he prided himself on being American. He prided himself on of working, and while he was working in Ronzoni, he bought a car wash. So he worked the car wash on weekends. So he
Wow.
worked a 9 to 5, and it was never a 9 to 5 job. Who works 9 to 5 these
Right.
days? No one. No one
Right.
then either. And then if you wanted to be with my dad, you better know how to dry a car without scratching it.
Really?
And
Okay.
neutral, no steering, no brakes. That's
Are
all I
you
would
a big
remember.
car person now, or no?
I am a car person. I do
Okay.
like
All
cars.
right. You are a car
Yeah.
person. Okay.
And that's really my influence of my dad. My dad was a hardworking guy. My dad valued education. He valued people. His whole world was built on relationships,
Yeah. So
right?
it sounds like he wanted to give you like what he didn't get when he came over. Like he didn't have the opportunity to go to school, and he's like Joe, and the rest of your family, your sister, your brother. He wanted to encourage you to go do that. And he's like, you're going to be a lawyer. And I think like when you're young, like, you really take what your parents say to heart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You really like listen to them. Obviously you did, like it's really one of those things. That's interesting.
And he looked at each of us and saw something that we had to offer that was
Okay.
different. My brother's a very smart, hardworking guy,
Yeah.
but not a great personality, and I wouldn't be too. So he said, maybe your clients should be anesthetized.
Yeah.
you
So what do
know,
you think? So what do you think he saw in you that was like, go be a
well,
lawyer?
he saw that I liked people.
Yeah. Okay.
As a middle child, I was the guy who sought peace, and I
Yeah.
sought
Yep.
um I I had a very good relationship with both my siblings. I had a very good relationship with my extended family. Maybe you saw someone who, wanted societal acceptance and wanted to be part of the society. And I did see the rules of society, and that's what lawyers do.
Right.
We manage the rules of our interaction with one another.
Interesting.
When it goes bad, unfortunately, lawyers really get involved when those rules are violated, right?
So that's right. That is totally correct. So what town did you really grow up with? Like, did you spend like high school and all that?
I grew up on Staten Island,
Okay, all
and I
right.
went to Monsignor Farrell High School, which was an all-boy Catholic school.
Yep.
I was on the wrestling team. We were,
Okay. All right.
we were an interesting family.
Okay.
It was born from the have-nots, really. My
Okay.
childhood was a product of getting past of what my parents didn't get. I learned to play the piano not because I wanted to play the piano, but my mother grew up in a family that didn't have toys. So being learning an instrument was a luxury.
Right.
My mother's parents, if they were alive today, would be 100. My grandfather worked on the Panama Canal. He was
Wow.
born in 1894. So the math is, I can't even do the math that quick. I think it would be 135 years old. My mother was raised by a, a very, very um, a Sicilian man who was very antiquated.
Okay.
She wasn't allowed to go to college, even though she had the capacity. So that was, again, education was very important.
Right. Right.
And she was a great advocate for her own ability. My mother, who grew up in a very paternal world, learned to advocate for for herself and what she was capable of. With
That's
my father, her
important. Yeah.
father, her in-laws, it was there's all these influences of who you become, and when you try to unpack it backwards, it kind of all of a sudden light bulbs go over your head. I'm like, oh, maybe that's why that happened
Yeah.
that way,
Yeah. Right. I know. I get it. So, and that's important. Your mom was cutting edge. She was advocating for herself. So, that's what it sounds like, right?
And it was so funny. My mom became a clerk in not the normal way in New York. In New York, oftentimes court officers, which is become clerks, and they get a raise, they get promotions, they're not in uniform
Right.
anymore,
Right. Right.
but they also have their peace officer status maintained. So
Okay.
my mom became a clerk out of the secretary pool.
Okay.
So she said, well, I'm entitled to be a peace officer. I should go for peace officer training. She always advocating for herself.
Yeah.
And she was a 50-something-year-old woman going
Okay.
to the gun range in downtown Manhattan to qualify for her pistol permit, which
Wow.
is a funny story. So I'm on trial, and in downtown Manhattan, it was a bus case, had to be about 20 something years ago. And the court officer said to me, Bavaro, you related to Mayor Bavaro? And I said, yeah. How do you know my mom? And he said, well, I was in the gun training unit. I said, oh, really? So I remember my mom went through the gun training. What? He goes, did she ever tell you what happened? I'm like, no. I just never, I knew she didn't get her license. So to know my mother, she's like 5'2". She had curly salt and pepper black hair. She was going for gun training, and he had to fail her because of what is known as the Mary move. Every time she was on the gun range and they were firing, if someone said something, she would turn down the range.
Oh, jeez.
So everyone hit the deck.
Everybody.
So it was. So
Didn't
I
something
found
happen
out
like that in like Police Academy, like the Police Academy
it
music?
could have,
It's
but
like, that's hilarious.
it was, yeah. So she had to be failed.
Oh,
And
that's too.
but again, she advocated it was her right to go for gun training. She wanted to be a peace officer. She's a clerk like everyone else, and unfortunately, sometimes you can advocate for all you want. If you're not entitled to it, you ain't getting
Did
it. You
she go
know?
back to try to get it finally? Take it again?
No,
No.
I
So
think that was someone telling her that this was
yeah,
not the right fit for her.
I get it. So Joe, so you went on to SUNY Albany. Tell us
Yeah.
about the decision to go. I looked at SUNY Albany actually too. Looked like a cool place. I liked it. I ended up going to UMass Amherst, but SUNY Albany and go. So tell us about the decision to go there, and then we'll get
Well,
into law school a little bit.
I was never, well, in high school, I was a mediocre student. I
Okay.
had very good SATs. Um, I remember his name was Brother Fish,
Okay.
and we were doing the counseling before college, and I'm sitting there like a with my chest out when my SAT scores came in, and I'm with my dad, I'm with Brother Fish, and we're talking about where I should be applying, and I was waiting for a compliment from the brother,
Yeah.
and he said, "Well, I see your SAT scores are very good, and then they're incompatible with your grades.
Right.
All this proves is that you waste your parents' money on this tuition,"
Oh.
which was really a kick in the
Yeah.
gut.
Yeah.
So my father, his head, he didn't say anything. He just looked at me. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
So how Albany came out, my father wanted me to get the best school I can find, and it was a great education. And I had a lot of friends going up there, and I'm glad I did. I had a brother going to Columbia at the time.
Wow. Okay.
So it was, it was between Fordham, BU, and Albany.
Okay.
And my father said to his little Italian son, if you go to Albany, I'm sure, and it's so much cheaper than Columbia, I'll buy you a very fancy sports car when you graduate. When I graduated, my father said, do you want a sports car? Or I can help you with law school. And don't be an idiot. So
Really?
he helped me with law school.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Right. So that's actually like sounds like one of the first cases you read in contract. Like a promise and acceptance. Like, did you accept it? Did you give the consideration? But so tell us about law school. You went on to Quinnipiac, and that's kind of I went to Roger Williams, so I heard a lot about Quinnipiac when I was applying, and I lived in New Haven, so that like after my law school days, like that was my first legal job, and so that was interesting. Tell us about your law school experience, Joe.
I loved it.
You
I mean,
did?
I really, well, college I loved. I was founding father of a fraternity up in Albany, which was a
Really?
great
Which one? I was a founder too.
Sigma Alpha Epsilon,
Sigma SAE. Okay.
SAE.
I was a
And
founder of ZBT at UMass. Shout out to
Z,
ZBT.
ZBT was huge in
Yeah, I heard
Albany.
you. Yeah, one of my close
Huge.
friends in law school went to Albany undergrad.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, I heard about that. He told me. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, congrats.
So I went to Quinnipiac. My first dealing with Quinnipiac was I coached Joe Namath football camp with my brother 2 summers. So I knew about Quinnipiac because that's where it was
Okay.
located. I had no idea about the law school. Um, I had, it was my father got sick around that point. I wanted to be closer to him. I
Yep.
was going to either go to University of San Diego Law School, which I got
Right.
into when I was sent a deposit. Um, and it was just too far away. I made that decision to stay back, and I'm glad I did. You
Yeah.
know,
Totally.
it would have been easy, 1990 to 93. being in California would have been great. It would have been hard to come back, but my dad passed away 7 years later.
Mm.
I'm glad I didn't do that.
Yeah.
I'm glad I stayed in the Northeast because of it. It would have changed my trajectory of my life completely. I'm sure
Oh, yeah,
I'd be
definitely.
playing golf right now instead of suffering this cold
Yeah.
weather. But
Wow.
there's each choice, each path has its reward, right?
It does, and you could always think about what would have been, but
And what would have been could have been much worse, could have been much better, could have been just a different variety of good,
yeah,
you
that's
know?
true. That's true.
Yeah.
Um, so tell us about mentorship. Like one of your early mentors was Supreme Court Justice Louis San Giorgio.
Which,
So tell us about like the impact that he had on you and like on your career to approach in the law.
well, he was very much, he was another quiet man who listened,
Yeah.
which for a big yapper like myself, again, I really should hearken back to those guys, like my dad and Judge San Giorgio. And he was a guy who really just sat back and listened to things and evaluated it, and really nothing half cocked, nothing really, it seemed like it was coming out of anger. Um, he was just a good man, and he spent time listening to everybody.
Yeah.
I was this schmucky kid in law school thinking I was some kind of hot shot, and interning in Richmond County Supreme Court.
Right.
And he was the administrative judge, and he was curious about what I thought about things. And what I saw, he was very gracious. I was an intern supposed to be doing legal work, right? If there was a trial going on, he wanted me to go see it. And then he wanted to know what I thought about
Wow, that's great. Those are the best people, like
it. Yeah.
if you take it seriously, like if you actually take it for what it is, like, all right, I'm gonna go watch this trial. I'm not gonna, be not paying attention.
He wanted to know what I found interesting.
Okay.
He wanted to know through the filter of my eyes what I saw. And that, I guess if we could all learn, if we just learn to, what is the other man in our life, other person that
Right.
we're involved with? What are they seeing? What are they doing? How are they interpreting this? Are they getting what I'm getting? And I'm curious to find out why. Right.
Right. Right. Right. Totally.
And,
So
and and I have to give a shout out. I was very fortunate that when I was interning, Judge Mastro, who was an appellate judge, was Judge San Giorgio's lawman at that time. He wasn't a judge yet, and he had the same kind of interest in, let's make sure that these next wave of it. It was an old town mentality,
okay.
Staten Island back in
Oh, like
1990.
let's make sure that these new wave of lawyers are gotcha.
in,
Okay.
indoctrinated
Yeah.
into how we practice like gentlemen, women and
Interesting.
men practice like gentlemen. And that I saw a couple great trials. And I remember with one guy's last name was DeMarco, and the other attorney's name was Scarlata. And they were, well, I'm sure you're not surprised that Scarlato and
Yeah.
and those two guys were trying a case together, and they were going at it in a car accident case
Really?
where a kid who was crossing the street to pick up
Ugh.
something from a deli got hit by a car that went around a parked bus. And I
Ugh.
still remember. I mean, this is from
Is
1991.
this the case you were watching?
I was watching,
Okay.
and these guys went after each other. I mean, one was representing the insured,
Yeah,
and one was
sure.
representing, and Scarlata was representing the victim of this boy, and he had a traumatic brain injury. It was a bad case, big injuries, and the way they approached representing their clients was admirable. And although they were going at it, when the day was done, they appreciated each other.
Really?
There was a mutual respect, and it was hard to see sometimes.
Was it like a
Be-
small bar on Staten Island, like a
It
small?
was it, it
Okay.
was a small bar. It's
Yeah.
much bigger now. The
Right.
DA's office in Staten Island, when I was in the DA's office a couple of years later, maybe had 25 to 30 attorneys. Now it's
Right.
probably 50 or 60. The
Okay.
bar is grown like the
Yeah.
population has grown,
Sure.
but
Sure.
it was truly like in the 80s and 90s. Staten Island was like Mayberry, and it was a very nice way to learn how to practice law.
So when you saw that advocate on behalf of the young boy, do you actually still look back to that and like did you pull anything from that? I know I
The
know the judge
zeal.
told you to like come, tell me what you think, what you learned, but is there
What
something that you were like, wow, like I love that, like what he did, sort of thing?
he was fierce. He was
Fears,
fierce. I
right,
mean, this kid, he represented this kid and this kid's interests, and this kid had a mental defect as a result of this accident, and he fought for him. And I did get that, and that never left me. But the person who really molded who I was, or helped mold who I am as a lawyer, was Marvin Salenger.
right,
After I left the DA's office and got hired by Marvin, I carried his bag. I
right.
second sat him on 100 cases.
And look, I'll say like just a shout out, back to your partner Jeff, like even Jeff's episode 240 and this will be in the 250s, but so that's like weeks apart. He also prayed. I mean, he also talked. Couldn't say enough um, about Mr. Salenger, Marvin Salenger. So go ahead.
He was a guy that he loved the practice of law. He loved representing people. He loved speaking on their behalf. He would always tell people that he wasn't a great athlete. This was his basketball.
Right,
This and it's funny. Um, if you know anyone who practiced with Marvin, they look back on that experience as something that framed who they were as an attorney, as a person too.
right,
And that's not overstating it. That's not overstating it. He was a guy that made you feel special. Even if he's fighting with you, made you feel special. And the clients loved him.
yeah,
They felt like they got their day in court because this he was a great advocate. He got what made the case appealing to human beings. You know what I'm saying, Benny?
yeah,
I mean, lawyers, I don't want to say this as too glib, but sometimes we forget to think like human beings. And
yeah,
what
yeah.
makes a case important is not being evaluated by 6 or 12 lawyers. It's being evaluated by 6 or 12 human beings. And we've got to see
Right,
things from their perspective. Otherwise, you're not really going to be a great lawyer. You're not going to
right.
be great at practicing law because you're not practicing in front of people you practice. You gotta see what's important to people. And he always knew what was important to people.
Yeah,
He
yeah. It
was a
sounds
he
like it.
was
Yeah,
he was a very empathetic. He was outspoken. You never really had to worry about what he was thinking because you knew what he was thinking. He would tell you. He was
yeah,
confident about who he was as a human being. He loved people. He loved being part of people's lives. He loved helping people. You know, if I had to say someone who framed or shaped me, I can't imagine anyone more shaped me as a lawyer. He an unbelievable human being.
Did
Unbelievable.
he bring both you and Jeff in? Did he like hire
He
you?
did.
Okay.
He did. I met him when I was in the DA's office. My future father-in-law
Okay.
told Marvin about me.
Okay.
Um, and Marvin was looking for another young guy to come in and try cases.
Wow.
Um, and I'm not great at paperwork.
Right.
I love trying cases. I like being in front of a jury, and you know, I
Yeah,
like
I mean,
people telling
let's
people
talk about
stories.
that. It sounds like, you're the go-to guy for the trials and well, I guess backing up a little bit, like you worked at the DA's office, right? And
Right.
so tell us about the transition going into like medical malpractice. I mean, obviously, I think kids out of law school, or sorry, like young attorneys out of law school really like going into like the DA's office or, that sort of thing, public defense. You get like, you get good trial experience and then you feel like
Great.
you're comfortable in the courtroom. So what made you say, hey, like I want to go represent injured individuals in civil litigation. Like I want to kind of leave this.
Well, the great thing about being in the DA's office is you always felt like you had the white hat on, right?
Yeah.
You really, it was right, wrong. There was very little gray. If the case had gray in it, had the wrong case, right?
Okay.
So when I was in the DA's office, I was in the sex crimes unit. It involved mostly children, and on Staten Island, it wasn't stranger on stranger. It was a lot of times family member on family member, and after a while, the victim's the victim, right?
Yeah.
There's no change in that. At the end of the day, no matter how good a job you did, and if you got a conviction, the victim was still a victim,
Right.
and it was very, very discouraging, right? I mean, you weren't
Yeah.
helping; you were punishing. You weren't helping.
Yeah.
Um, Here, the civil end is the victim's the victim. Sure, you're not going to change if someone was injured, but you're going to try to make it right the only way we can
I mean,
as
that's gotta
lawyers.
be burnout too, though, Joe. Like working with like kids, like I mean, sex crime special victims unit. Like
Oh, there was
how
a
long can
serious
people
burnout.
do that? I mean, that's I mean, not like I mean, obviously, like it takes a special person to do that, but seeing these things over and over again, oh my goodness. I mean,
Uh,
and I guess
uh,
the same in what you're doing now, though, right? Like the same in what you do now. But like, I guess like the next question is like, when did you know, like with the civil litigation, like that medical malpractice was like sort of specifically where you belong? Like, did you have sort of a case, or did you see an injury? Did you watch a trial?
well, again, when I left the DA's office and started working Manhattan with Marvin, I was trying my own cases. I was trying a lot of motor vehicles. I was learning the practice of law. I was
Yep.
learning how to advocate for someone. Um, and in between that, I'm carrying Marvin's bag, watching him try medical malpractice cases. And I'm learning by watching. And
Okay.
that happened, it didn't happen overnight.
Right.
I mean, it happened over years, and more than a decade of me trying my own small cases and watching him try the big ones and getting his insight on how he approached certain things.
Right.
And when you're in the DA's office or when you're a young attorney, everything is with a hammer or and a wedge. You're hammering instead of smoothing. Marvin had a way of, he had a hammer. And when you were reading my intro, a fierce advocate, and I winced a little bit in that I'm a fierce advocate. I like to advocate for my client with ferocity
Yep.
when I have to.
Sure.
I'd rather smile. And I think a smile is much more powerful than a growl every day of the week. And I think it's much more receptive to a jury to hear someone approach us with humanity as opposed to fists. Um,
Sure.
Marvin never did anything out of anger if he could do it with a smile. He had to do some things out of anger, and I did see it, but
Really.
it happened very, very rarely, and he did it very judiciously, right?
Was it
And
when like a lawyer would say something or do something that was just kind of unjust?
I'm going to tell you right now, we had a case, and it was one of the first cases after my father passed away. It was one of the first cases I sat with Marvin, and it was 2001, maybe it was maybe before 9/11. It
Okay.
was downtown Manhattan. We took over a file from another attorney who mishandled it. Wasn't a trial attorney. It was a woman who was the victim of domestic violence and was chased into a roadway and hit by a car and killed.
Wow. Ugh.
And the the significant other was prosecuted and convicted and went away to jail. But the testimony of the car that saw her, I mean, it was bizarre how this person just didn't slow down. I think it was a bus, to be candid with
Huh.
you. I don't remember that
Okay.
detail so
Okay.
much, but I do think it was a bus. And there was some underhanded things done with the discovery on the
Understood.
case.
Okay.
And the defendant was really doing some underhanded things. There was some evidence that we got from the DA's office, and it's funny how these things come back. Where the DA, it happened outside of a movie theater, and they did a full to scale rendition of the block, 3D, and it was before computer animation. This was brought to the courthouse.
Oh,
That
okay.
we got that from the DA's office. Now the defendant attorney didn't realize that this was coming in.
Okay.
And he said, "Yeah, whatever you get, I have no problem. Whatever helps the jury understand what happened here, I'm all for it." So really what that's saying is, I'm not going to stand on ceremony to make you bring in the engineer who's going to show that this is to scale, it's fair and accurate, all the buzzwords that you need to say or elicit or evidence you need to elicit to get this thing authenticated to go before a jury. And when the DA's office dropped it off and our adversary saw it and saw how compelling the evidence was, he changed his tune.
Wow.
And he changed his tune to the detriment of a child that's left without a mother.
Ugh.
And that really kind of made Marvin mad. And Marvin found a way of getting around it. He didn't ask for the guy wanted to be a jerk. You said you were going to stipulate this. You said you would have no problem. You got a problem? Okay. I'll bring in someone tomorrow. And we found a way. He wasn't going to ask, but don't Marvin me again. Don't you Marvin me.
Yeah.
Don't you hey Marvin me again.
Right.
Meaning, don't approach me to be your friend.
You're not
when
my friend. Yeah.
You're not
Totally.
don't you hey Marvin me.
Yeah.
And I never forgot, you could be a good person, but you got to represent your client.
Right.
And if your word is everything. If you go back on your word, what kind of lawyer are you?
Right. So, Joe, you're a senior partner at Salenger, Kimmel, Bavaro.
Right.
What kind of cases are you taking right now? Like, who's coming to you in their time of need?
What I get charged about is, the medical malpractice cases are very, very rewarding. You're figuring it out.
Okay.
It's a lot of where's the puzzle pieces. You're getting a box of pieces
Okay.
of a puzzle without the cover.
Interesting.
You,
Okay.
you know, you're getting all these pieces. Okay, figure out the story, figure out what
Right.
went wrong, and figure out why someone's responsible. And a lot of it is a lot of what we do, unfortunately, is explaining to the victim, you know, something really bad has happened to you, but it's no one's fault. Sometimes this is a risk of what happens when you have this kind of procedure done.
Okay.
Or, you know, the doctor did misdiagnose you and didn't diagnose the cancer in time. However, with this type of cancer, it would not have changed the outcome.
Okay.
So, although that's a tough thing to deliver, oftentimes it's important for a client to know that this was inevitable.
How much
Unfor-
background, how much work does that take to get to those responses?
I think a lot of
Like,
work,
okay.
a lot. I mean, talking to experts,
Right.
doing a lot of reading. I've had I have it with family members too. When they come to me, you do medical malpractice case. Could you look at these records? And 2,000 pages show up at your door, and
Right.
you're looking
Right.
through and trying to figure it out. But it's
Are you,
again,
yeah.
it's I don't know if the word is cumulative. The more you do, the more you figure it out. The more the more people you get involved with, the more
Are some of
help.
the things the same? Like some of the injuries and some of the items that you see the same? Like some of the malpractice issues?
The issues are always the same. I think the cases are often the better cases, the cases that are the most compelling, the cases that really have the most traction is when the system, meaning the administration, the hospital, isn't built
Okay.
to. They're good at collecting the money. They're bad at servicing the client,
Mm.
or
Okay.
the doctor ignores a patient's request for help,
Okay.
or abandons the patient functionally. Meaning, okay, he writes down all these different issues, doesn't follow up, doesn't.
Okay.
I think the
So it's
public
more
is
that than like in surgery, you would say, like that sort of thing.
a surgical technique is very hard to challenge a
Okay.
doctor. This is the way we're trained. I mean, when you have a medical malpractice case, you have one expert for each specialty. If it's an orthopedic case, you get an expert to come
Yeah.
in to testify why it's a departure from whatever that doctor did, right? The doctor is his own expert and is going to be saying, I didn't depart. Let me tell you why. And then the doctor has his own expert, has another expert. So it's always a two on one. So, and maybe sometimes even more, because there is always there could be a proximate cause witness. So oftentimes you're going to be trying your case with one doctor against three.
Mm.
So it's easier to it's easier for a jury to understand the case on a human level
Okay.
when the doctor didn't appreciate complaints, disregarded complaints, made the client feel, well, that guy was complaining, but he was a crybaby. It was a disproportionate response to pain. It
Right.
wasn't that there was something went wrong that he failed to appreciate. Oh, blame the victim. It's easier for a jury to understand that than saying, okay, this was a tactical error
Sure.
done by the
Sure.
surgery in that the doctor didn't use the skill of another doctor. That does happen,
Yeah.
but it has to be pretty compelling in that the doctor cut a nerve, or the doctor stitched a nerve, or doctor left something in there that shouldn't have been left,
Gotcha.
or the surgical
That's
technique is
really
to
interesting.
challenge a doctor's surgical technique is a
Yeah.
very challenging thing.
That's really interesting. Okay. It's more like standard of care stuff. Like
Yeah,
what the
standard.
okay.
Yeah, and it's really, I think the case is really, you owe your client the service of finding the human component of the case. What really happened, right? And so it can be more easily digested by a jury.
So
Because if one doctor comes in and say, well, his technique wasn't great, the defendant's doctor is going to say, well, it was. This is
yeah.
the way I'm trained.
Yeah.
I'm board certified. I'm fellowship trained.
And plus like professionals have like professional sort of they can I don't want to say they can do what they want, but they have professional judgment, right? Like a lawyer might approach a case then different than another lawyer might approach a case. Doctor might do something that another doctor different than another doctor does, right? Like that sort of has to
Right.
play a role in it. So you're going to go searching for an expert that's going to give you the answer that you want, like that, and they're going to pay them, and they're going to get discredited on the stand,
The doctor is always going to be able to find an expert.
right?
He's always going to, and they're always going to have a justification for why they did and didn't do something.
Right.
And the challenge in practicing medical malpractice is you may get the goods on the doctor. You may find an article that he wrote that is inconsistent with that. How
Right.
often does that happen?
Well, that's
Not too
interesting.
often.
Yeah.
It does happen. If I've had it. I think defendant doctors and defense attorneys that represent doctors in years past have gotten a little bit arrogant, maybe, that the public looks at doctors a little bit differently today than they did before. Doctors could do no wrong 15, 20 years ago.
Right. Right. Right.
We're looking at, it's now an industry. It's not a profession as much. And I
Yeah.
think if you can make the case, and we're speaking to lawyers, of course, and in general, if the case is about the doctor failing in some human way, a meaningful human way, um, it's a much easier case to prosecute.
Yeah.
If the analogy is if he was pumping gas, um, or any profession. If the guy was a carpenter, but we treat them differently because it's doctor. When the doors get open for the doctor, but when in exchange for that title in that respect, they're supposed to provide services to us. When they don't do it the way they're supposed to, in an inhuman way, in a disregarding way, in an arrogant way, that's when the cases become easier to prosecute. And they could be. You can find those. I mean, there's in every case, there's a little bit. Unfortunately and fortunately, doctors are usually the smartest people in our society. Unfortunately, sometimes they act like it.
Wow. Um, Let me ask you a question. So,
Sure.
I know I've been asking a bunch, but
Yeah.
so you handle complex issues, like complex litigation. What makes what's the difference between like a complex issue and just like a regular issue, like especially in like medical malpractice? Is there such a difference?
Well, really, it kind of boiling it down to that
Yeah.
question is I'm trying to make everything not complicated
Okay.
because even the most complicated cases have to be understood by a jury.
But why are people coming to you with like with Joe? Like, why are they coming to Joe Bavaro? Like that, they can go somewhere else. Like, what is it about? I think you like your technique, your personality, your being fierce in court. Like, what do you think they're coming to you for, Joe?
Good question. What I hope
Yeah.
what I hope for
Yeah.
is I've got a great reputation.
Yep.
I'm not afraid to try a case.
Love it.
But what I really hope for is, and well, I'm going to tell you, I was fortunate enough recently to be at a good friend of a good friend of mine from the DA's office, and a true friend, was sworn in as a judge on Staten Island about
Wow.
30 less than 30 days ago,
Okay.
December 23rd. I can't imagine a better person who is befitting of such an honor. My friend, I'm going to say his name, Matt Santamore. He's a
Great.
fantastic attorney, fantastic person. I can't imagine a better judge. When I was at his swearing in, an attorney came up to me and said, "Listen, I just lectured up in Albany at Albany Law, and a woman came up to me and said, asked if the lecturer, knew me, Joe Bavaro."
Okay.
And he's telling me the story, and he didn't have her name, but he said she you represented her father passed away. It was a failure to diagnose a cardiac problem, and he passed away. And you represented the family and was successful in Nassau County.
Okay.
And I knew exactly who the family was. It was I'm not going to mention the name. And he said the funny thing is, I asked her if she was impressed with your legal acumen,
Hmm.
and she said I was more impressed with his humanity.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. That's
And
what an answer.
listen,
Yeah.
that's what. So that was a long way of saying, I hope people come to me for that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be. I used to tell people I'm not the tallest man in the building. I'm not the smartest guy in the building. I'm not. I don't have the most hair. Um, I still get nervous when I try a case. I mean, I when I stop getting nervous when I try a case, I'm going to stop trying cases. Um, but I want to care. I want my clients to know I
Yeah.
care, and
That's
I
great.
know that's the magic sauce in this business, right? Caring about other human beings.
So, so speaking about trying a case and like being nervous and caring, give us some advice to somebody who's maybe just starting out or somebody who's unsure about being a trial lawyer. Like, what would you tell somebody? Just general advice about being a trial lawyer, whether it's a good technique or something like that.
You know, it's so funny. There was a guy. I mean, there's a whole book on techniques, right? On how to be a good trial attorney.
Yeah.
And to me, you have to just do it. You just have to
Just
keep
do it.
on doing it.
Just do it.
And it's just practicing truly means practicing. You get better every time you do it. And you can't be afraid to fail. You can't be afraid. And I would tell young attorneys, anytime someone wants you to try a case, even if it's the biggest bag of crap, find the value in the case.
Right.
Find it and find the story. Because even though that client may not win, he may not be entitled to winning, but you're going to speak on his behalf or her behalf, and you're going to fight for them, and you're going to lose. But that client is going to appreciate that you spent the time and you spoke about them.
Yeah.
And I was talking to, oh, I was talking to one of my partners, and we were talking about my mother-in-law, and I made the analogy of a nun. And Benny, I don't know, do you know any nuns?
No, I don't
Okay.
know. I don't know any nuns. No, to be honest, I don't. I know some people who work at the church near where I
Right.
work, but I don't really know any like.
And I'm not saying priests, because priests and nuns are completely different in
Yeah,
that nuns take a vow of poverty.
yeah,
Nuns, their whole existence is the service of others.
yep,
They live in the service of others. And I was saying, if you look at a nun, you don't know if a nun is 50 or 95. You really don't, because their lives, it's so meaningful that they don't look like they're weathered down.
right. Okay.
And the analogy is, as trial attorneys, we're living in the service of others, and embrace that, and don't be afraid. How about this? The best thing I could tell, don't worry about how it's said. Anything with the right intention is the right word.
Right. Okay.
I used to get caught up in how am I going to say this? What word should I use? Is my grammar correct? Did I pause here? Did I stutter? Who gives a crap? Am I speaking in truth? And am I speaking in that client's best interest? And if I stutter or I use the wrong word or I use the wrong diction, jurors don't care. Are you speaking in truth, or are you advocating for someone? Are you helping somebody? Are you living in the service of others? And when you live in the service of others, life's good.
Love it. I love it. So, what do you like most about teaching other lawyers? I know we have to go in a minute, but
What
what
do
do
I
you?
like most? I like the enthusiasm of the young attorneys. Enthusiasm is contagious, right?
Yeah.
Marvin Salenger, getting back to Marvin, couldn't. I get nervous when I have people around me trying a case. I really do. I don't want anyone to ever think that I'm the authority on something, because I've had good success, and a lot of times it's just I've got good cases, right? And
Yeah.
I approach things, and I'm always prepared. I don't want to be prepared. If I'm prepared, I'm unprepared. I want to be prepared times 10.
Yeah.
And
That's important.
and I think that's the way to be the best advocate in care, right?
Yeah.
Marvin would want everyone in the courtroom come watch him work. And not necessarily because of his vanity, because he was vain. I mean, it was not only because he was vain, but because he wanted to inspire people, and he wanted people to realize that they could do it.
Yeah. Oh,
You can,
amazing.
everyone can, if you care and you went to law school and you know your case and you care about your client, you can try a case.
Wow. It's a lot of work.
A lot of work. It's a
It
lot
is
of
a lot of
work.
work. Are you using any, we talked about a lot of documents earlier and that sort of thing. Do you guys use any sort of, what do you think of AI and all that sort of thing?
I have I'm using Lexis with AI,
Okay.
and it's a great starting tool for legal research.
Yep.
I know that there's AI with a ChatGPT. You can
Yeah.
scan things in, and they'll do a timeline for you of the medical records. I haven't tried that yet.
Yep.
I think these things are going to be great in a way of getting organized, a way of it's going to be a tool like anything else, and it's going to make our lives a little easier, but it's not going to replace
Yeah.
us,
No,
because
definitely not.
AI can't, and maybe that's with the
Absolutely.
heart. The good attorneys care about their clients,
Oh, for
right?
sure. I mean, I don't even question that. I mean, we have Lawyer Stories has good relationships with like some companies that make it easier on like, doing the med crons and the complaints. And obviously it has to, it has to be looked over by the attorney and like, reviewed and make sure it's proper, but it'll save you. There's stuff that we know about that'll save you like a lot of time and those sort of things. But I'm
I
just
think
curious because we work with like a lot of, we have a lot of brands come to us and want us to get in front of the lawyers and that sort of thing. So
I'm excited about it, because I think it's going to help us advocate, in
yeah,
that it's going to get us organized. And
yes,
I think a lot of times as lawyers, we get, hold on, I got a prop here, right? We get stuck here. We get stuck looking at the file. We get stuck worrying about paperwork. We get stuck about the things that don't
yeah,
get you to you get you to the win. Don't get me wrong.
right,
But what our product is our client.
right, right,
And
totally.
that separates this file separates us from having a human connection to the client.
Sure.
And if AI could help us for our client to understand us better, us understand our client better, um, I think we're going to do better jobs by
Yeah.
using tools like
Yeah, it'll
that.
take some time away, and I think it'll still be the personal touch that matters for sure.
Yeah.
But is there anything else we left out today, Joe, that you wanted to bring up? I know I took some more time than we thought.
It was my privilege to talk to you, and it was such a nice thing. I mean, I love talking about who doesn't like talking about themselves, but I appreciate the interest in my path, and
Yeah, no, this is great.
I've been blessed
Yeah,
with my opportunities, and if I could ever, any of your listeners, if I can ever help anyone give advice
it's
about
awesome.
practicing law, trying a case, I've had so many people help me in my
That's so
career.
nice. Yeah, we'll definitely, we're gonna stay in touch, and we'll definitely, we'll see what's going on with that, and we have a pretty big community, and you know, um, yeah, we look forward to the future and hear more about your big wins.
Thank you.
So stay right there, Joe. Everybody else, thanks for tuning in. Wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves. Cheers.